Hi, Rick. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday again.
Here
How's-
we are, another day in paradise. It's sunny, it's in the 70s, and it is January. And that
Love that.
is why people want to vacation here and have a second home here.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
And that brings us right into today's topic. For this year, we're not messing around with our vlogs and our podcasts. We're going to cut right to the chase. And there was a big announcement for second home buyers. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so the agencies, Freddie and Fannie, are increasing the cost of doing certain types of loans effective April 1st. Now, that is for loan deliveries April 1st. And so, from a lending perspective, that cost will probably come into play for loan closings in March, would be my guess.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
in a nutshell, they've increased the cost quite a bit more for second homes, and then on loan amounts that are what we call the high balance loans above the 647.2. Those are increasing by about one discount point cost, which is about a 0.25% rate difference compared to where it is right now. But 1% is pretty manageable. That we can work with pretty easily. The bigger cost, though, is with the second homes, and that cost factor is based on down payment. And so they
Mm-hmm.
like to see buyers for second homes with that bigger down payment. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the loan to values, on a loan to value of 15% down, let's say, for example, or 85% loan to value, the price ad is 4.125 points.
Yeah.
That's
Boo.
that is
Boo.
yeah, boo is right. Exactly right. I don't like
I think,
it personally.
yeah, I think we got to acknowledge that this is some way of the government trying to control who's buying houses and who's not buying houses by affecting them in the pocketbook. And
Right.
so they're punishing people who can purchase a second home. So I guess the alternative is not to get financing through Fannie or Freddie, but now they're going to punish you by charging points, big time points. I mean, I don't think in my real estate career have we had all the, mandatory 4 points.
Yeah, that's kind of high. I mean, but the good news on that, if there is any good news, if you would, that at the bigger down payment. So, for example, that at say 25% down payment for a second home, a lot of buyers who are buying second homes have got pretty good sized down payments. That drops. So so it's 25% down. That 4.125 discount point drops down to 2.125. So it almost cuts in half. In fact, it does cut it.
Mm-hmm.
So a bigger down payment's a lot more manageable. Now
Mm-hmm.
we can include a lot of that extra cost into the rate. So it's not that big a deal. So for example, I mean, don't forget the rates are higher today. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. But if you take that example at say 15% down payment, which is the highest cost, you could do a loan today at 4.125, for example, and at at 2.125 points. But you'd knock that down by almost half by going to 25% down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, they really trying to get you to put 25% down, which, you know, is quite a bit of money, but
now, and just in terms of disclosure, I'm not quoting an APR here. That's the actual note rate. Your APR would be, I don't have to calculate that still, but probably on a 4.125 rate, probably in the 4 and 5/8 range on an APR.
mm-hmm,
Because the
mm-hmm.
APR, don't forget, is a function of the cost of that loan over a 30-year term. So the APR is always higher than the actual note rate.
Got it. So basically, the bottom line is if you have been in the market looking to purchase a second home and you haven't done so yet, check with your lender because there is a big change coming and it'll start in March, or call Rick because he will help you structure the financial situation so that it makes the most sense for you. And that's something that you're really good at. You're really good at a lot of things, but you're really good at slicing and dicing and putting together a situation that makes sense. So
Yeah, no, thanks. There's a lot of ways to look at this. People kind of look at what that number looks like and they kind of get, it is a big number. I'm not trying to discount that, but there's ways to manage that number. It's not the end of the
Mm,
world. And so what's going to
yeah.
happen, and by the way, this is not forever. Who knows how long this will be on? But
Mm,
I would think probably at least through the end of the year. So it's going to be on there for pretty much a year. But you know,
hmm.
down the road, guess what happens? Rates get better, you refinance out of it, not a big deal, right? Lower the rate, lower the payment down the road. So it's not a forever situation either necessarily.
I know. I hate betting on refinancing later for a lower rate. So
Right. You can't,
I don't know.
that certainly could be an option, you know. But look, even historically, rates around 4% historically are we know are really still good rates.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I
it's not a
agree.
high cost, high rate loan for sure.
Speaking of interest rates, tell me about the last 7 days for you.
Well, it's been interesting for sure. We've talked about this before. We know at some point in 2022, we're going to start seeing rates increase. There's no doubt about that. The challenge for the Fed is how to, in terms of managing monetary policy, how do you kind of ease into that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they look at a lot of indicators in the market. Here's one thing I don't want us to confuse. There's a lot of talk about the Fed increasing the discount rate, and that's likely going to happen in the March meeting. I think that's pretty much baked in. About a 75% chance right now that the Feds will increase that discount rate probably a quarter point in March at their March meeting. I
Mm-hmm.
got to tell you, the markets anticipate that those moves well in advance of that announcement. Okay.
Right. It's like when the gas prices go up at the pump, when you just heard that oil prices went up and you're like, that gasoline was already at that station. Why did they raise it already? It's because they're anticipating what's coming down the road.
Yeah, and then the same thing in the mortgage markets. Now, the thing of it is this: the discount rate, which is the Fed rate, does not equal mortgage rates. They're entirely
Right.
separate. Okay. So
Right.
what drives mortgage rates and why we've seen rates go up in this past week is a couple of things. A, inflation. That's a big
Right.
number. Okay. The inflation is about double where they think it should be. Inflation is about 4%. When the rates were lower, inflation was around 2%.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the Feds control inflation is by raising rates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is essentially a move that is preemptive to keep the inflation from going out of control. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you look back, and I can look at the history because I was living it back in
Yeah.
Carter administration, back when I was first getting into business, as crazy as that sounds, right? If you look back at that, what was inflation doing? It was out of control. I mean, rates were like 18%, but inflation was inflation was like 13, 14%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
the way the Feds controlled that inflation number is to raise the rates, reel in the spending, if you will, and then that equals the market out. Now, I think
Mm-hmm.
what's driving this round of inflation is really the supply chain.
Right.
The supply chain is an issue. So I don't think the inflation is long-term in this example. I think it's
Mm.
fairly short-term and that will balance out. So I think once we get to the other side of this pandemic, whatever that looks like, as
Mm.
well as the supply chain issues, we're going to see that number level out quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We also look at the jobs reports, right? Look, it's a weird market on the jobs. Look at the restaurants that are not open at night because no one wants to go to work. It's crazy, right?
It's so weird. It's so bizarre. We ordered a closet, like one of those custom closets, finally after, 'cause, our house is 100 years old, so my closet's about this big. Anyway, we ordered it last March and they kept having to cancel and reschedule because they have no workers.
Yeah, right. So inflation is what's driving this right now for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Look, nothing ever moves in a straight line forever, right? So we've seen a nice, pretty good little bump in rates. We've seen really about a 0.5% in bump in rates in the last week.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't really anticipating that. There's no way to anticipate that. Will that last forever? No. I do think at some point later this year, the Feds will kind of reel that back in a little bit. I don't think rates are going to go, they're not going to go sky high. It's a
Mm-hmm.
matter of perception, right? I mean, look, we've been in a market the last couple of years of around 3% rates. Those are not sustainable either.
Right, exactly.
So rates around the 4% range historically are really, really good rates.
Right. So can you do the math really quick?
Yeah.
Because I want sellers to see how this might affect them.
Yeah, sure.
So if you had a $1 million house, which is the new 500,000 is the million, and you had 20% down, and at the beginning of the year, the rates were what, 3.25 or something? And now they're,
Mhm. Let's say it's 3.75 for now, just for
Yeah,
example. That's not where rates are today necessarily, but that's
yeah.
a start.
Yeah, give me the change in payment, please.
No, you betcha. That's on an $800,000 loan, by the way, so.
Yeah.
The difference in payment between 3.25 and 3.75 is $223 a month.
222, you said?
$223 a month.
223. So what sellers have to understand is that the interest rates definitely are going to impact what people are willing to pay for a house, which is the whole reeling in the inflation part of things. So they have to understand how this all affects pricing, and to make sure that they're, in the know about what's going on. So this week, whenever the rates go up that much in a week, that's always like, but I'm sure it will calm down, like you said.
It will calm down.
Yeah.
Rates not going to stay high. I mean, by the way, rates are not high. They're just higher.
Right. Well, just whenever rates go up like that, like in 2018, I think they went up an entire point in a very short period of time. And so that 223 turned into 500, and basically, and people got a little disappointed. So when that happens, they just have to cycle through everything,
Well, it reminds me, gosh, this goes back, I want to say 1980. 84. I was at a mortgage bankers conference, a dinner meeting.
Yeah.
There was a guy there from Fannie Mae. Don't forget, in those days, rates were coming down. Rates were in the 14% range and coming down. Where we're seeing the very first loans that were variable rates coming into the market, and they were above 10%. He said something that stuck in my brain like it was just yesterday. Here's what he said. So I'm here to tell you that the future of our business is variable rate mortgages, and you will never see 30-year fixed again below 10%.
Nah, that's funny.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, look, is 4% a great deal? That's a great deal. I'll take it all day long.
I know. Right? I know.
Perspective.
All right. Well, this has been very informative. It has been the meat and the potatoes of what's some changes that have come up. So I appreciate that. And I promised everybody we would talk about PMI. So let's do that next week. Okay.
We can do that for sure.
I know that next week is my responsibility to come up with the content, but if you could do PMI.
PMI is always fun. We can talk about that.
All right. Fun is a very interesting way to describe it, but okay, good. Well, thanks, Rick. Thanks for your time and your expertise, and you make us all smarter, and that is why we go to you when we have questions about this kind of stuff.
All good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
Bye.